Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life on Sept6th2016.
And welcome to Boomer Life on Sept6th2016. I'm Joanne Sutton. Thanks for joining us today. So, are you where you want to be financially? A well-thought-out plan for your financial future is an integral part of building the life that you want for both yourself and for your family. On Boomer Life today, we're going to be talking about your financial future with JimeDoyle. Jim's a senior financial consultant with Investors Group Financial Services, Inc. And today, we hope to tackle 4 key issues. Everything from the challenges of downsizing your home to the pitfalls of owning a joint property purchase. We'll also be addressing some very key estate planning challenges and estate pitfalls that could prevent you from fulfilling your retirement goals. We've got a lot of ground to cover, Jim, so thanks for being here today.
Hi, Joanne. When I was much younger, someone asked me why I wasn't making $1 million a year. I said it wasn't because I lacked ambition or passion. It was that I hadn't learned how to. Sometimes knowing when and how to use the services of a professional provides a substantial benefit.
I think I know where you're going here. And honestly, I think given the chance, most of us wouldn't mind retiring earlier if we knew how we could be financially secure. So this is basically the crux of it. Financial and lifestyle security doesn't just happen by itself. It requires some very specific training and some very specific planning.
You want to work with an advisor who specializes in your situation. Someone who pays attention to you and is willing to answer your questions and has the time available when you need them. If you need cash flow and budgeting help, it doesn't make sense to use an advisor who specializes in portfolio management. Just as you wouldn't make sense to, if you're young and starting a family, to work with an advisor who specializes in retirement income planning.
Well, it seems to reinforce your message, Jim, that people can benefit from working with the right financial planner to help address any blind spots that they might have in their, big financial picture.
Thanks, Joanne. I'd like to extend an offer to those listening. You don't have to feel uncertain about your financial picture. Call me for a second opinion. Talk to somebody who has the appropriate training.
There you go. There's an invitation for a second opinion. You can ask Jim basically anything, and Jim can be reached. Here's where you get your pen and paper out, 604-682-5431.
I'm sure the new CRM2 requirements coming are going to see advisors becoming more vocal about how they add value in an effort to justify their services and fees.
Well, I'm hoping you'll explain that a little more. What's going to happen as a result of this new CRM2 program?
CRM2, which we'll call a client relationship model, is an industry-wide requirement. It exists so that investors can answer basic questions about their investments and articulate the value that they get for their money.
Well, I guess in the big picture, I'm wondering how that differs from what we deal with now, because people like to know what value they get for their money, whether they have a written financial plan and are getting estate, tax, and retirement planning advice, or just paying for investment advice. It sounds like this is going to help many investors.
You're probably going to hear a lot more about this over the next several months, but I think it can be a good thing. Creating a customer-centric approach is vital. Every financial decision you make isn't a money decision, but it's a personal one. It's about building the life you've always envisioned in spite of what the markets might be doing.
Uncertainty in the world makes all of us a little bit uncomfortable about our financial futures.
I hear you. 2 years ago, we saw Russia invade and then annex Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula. Britain has voted to leave the European Union. It's a tumultuous geopolitical climate. And do you really want to be making your long-term financial decisions on the broadcast of the world's daily news?
Well, Jim, would it be fair to say that people are likely anxious when it comes to making long-term financial decisions on their own? There's a bit of pressure to really get it right.
I think when customers evaluate a product or service, they weigh its perceived value against the asking price. What consumers truly value, however, can be difficult to pin down, and it's psychologically complicated. And financial services are no different. Now imagine, like in many advisor-client relationships, I'm asked for ways to deliver more performance.
Well, it's not an uncommon request.
That's right. And we like to look for ways to do that. But how do you put an economic value on functional things like saving time or emotional matters like reducing anxiety or stress or addressing life's changing events? Discrete choice, like reducing risk and making money, are vital, but so are growing revenue, variety, and providing advisor access. These are all items that go beyond investment performance.
Well, I think these are things that people value, and I think they can be hard to come by.
In my world, these elements of value, fundamental attributes in their most essential forms, are the basis for creating and fostering confidence in one's financial affairs.
Jim, I feel we could all use a little more confidence in our financial affairs.
When you take the time to listen, people share things that matter to them. Several months ago, we had a couple who were really wrestling with their decision about downsizing their home. Their decision appeared to hinge on something as simple as what do you do with the dining room table. We talked about their vision and their new home wish list. They wanted a big living room, a large second bedroom for visitors, or when the kids came over, a breakfast bar to make entertaining easy and casual. On the other hand, they didn't need a formal dining room. It left the question of what to do with the dining room table.
What to do with the dining room table doesn't seem to be that big of a deal, but is it?
The dining room table for them represented so much more than a well used or maybe out of date a piece of furniture that might be best given to a local charity or possibly even relegated to the local dump. They told me how the dining room table represented every birthday, every Christmas, holiday with the family, even down to the kids' homework being spread across it. The table represented family. Giving it up created substantial anxiety, potentially giving up something they had profound value to them. And we talked about the possibility of putting it in storage until one of the kids might be able to take custody of it.
Well, did that help open the door to helping them move forward?
It did. Okay. They needed time to consider making decisions about what to keep or discard, and they wanted to feel they weren't rushed in dealing with the things that had profound value to them.
Well, it sounds like a lot of emotion around things that they cherished, and I can see how people might be blindsided by stuff like this.
Too often, we're seeing people looking to live simpler lives, but to get there, they need to push through the stress of selling their current home and wading through exhausting choices about what to keep. Then there's the money side of things. Identifying and understanding the job to be done are only part of the first steps in creating the right set of client experiences.
Well, in today's red hot real estate market, many of our listeners are likely considering downsizing their home. So, in your experience, Jim, what are some of the factors that they should be considering at this time? Given that your home is likely, one of your biggest assets, I know one that you're likely going to suggest is basically sitting down with a planner like yourself. You don't want to be overlooking anything.
Thanks, Joanne. Is it wise to downsize? Is a great question, and we get asked this a lot. We hear a lot about people wanting not only to downsize, but to declutter their lives. If you travel a lot, a maintenance-free yard can be a pretty appealing thing. A great place to start, we suggest, is be honest with yourself. Are you downsizing for financial reasons or practical reasons?
It's a good place to start. So it is nice if you have some time to be able to plan this one out. I know who you can call if you're not sure where to start. What sorts of questions could people ask themselves as a starting point for downsizing? Like, where do they start?
Well, for instance, have your kids moved away and your 5-bedroom home is now too large for you? Has your spouse died? And do you want to move closer to your grandkids? Are you looking for a place you want to grow old in? For my folks, managing the stairs in the house my dad built turned out to be too much for my mom. Downsizing for them resulted in getting a well-equipped home with many modern features, bells and whistles.
So in regards to your parents, was this a relatively seamless process for them?
I'd have to say it probably wasn't. They spent a good amount of time assessing their needs, deciding what they really needed, and looking at how they lived their daily life. I don't think they banked a profit. In fact, the new home cost several thousand more than they sold their place for. They equipped their home with everything they felt they would need for now and for the future to be comfortable.
Is this a pretty common experience?
I think a lot of people are surprised that moving into a smaller home isn't necessarily cheaper or necessarily better. Monthly expenses can add up. You might save money on utilities, but those might be eaten up by costly maintenance fees. If you move away from an urban area, you might not have access to public transit that fits your needs, requiring you to buy, insure, and maintain a second vehicle.
Good point. I remember last show that you said the second largest expense for most retirees was actually transportation. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is often overlooked when people plan their futures.
On the other hand, if you move from the suburbs to downtown, you might be able to sell one of your cars and rid yourself of all of its expenses. For instance, if you gave up a 3-year-old mid-sized car, you could save between 20 and 25,000 over the next 5 years.
Well, that's substantial.
I think for most people, counting on downsize to bolster their nest egg, expectations don't often meet their dreams. The truth is, most people who downsize walk away with less money than they expected.
Why do you think that is?
Well, let's consider a couple selling their home in the valley and moving into a condo last year. Let's say they sold their place for $775,000 and bought a nice condo for $510,000. Now that's a sizable price difference, and you'd think they'd walk away with an extra $250,000. However, that's before all the costs were taken into account. Moving into a smaller footprint might mean you need some new furniture, and that can easily eat up $10,000 or more.
I think there's a lot more expenses you're going to talk about here. So basically, you're talking about things like the dining room table that we spoke of earlier.
You're right. You know, for this couple, they had to pay over $27,000 in real estate commissions to their agent. They had GST on their new place of around $25,000, the property purchase transfer tax of about $13,500, as well as legal fees around $2,500. Then there's the moving cost, utility hookup fees, prepayment penalties on any mortgage balances they're paying off, and of course, don't forget the property tax adjustments.
Oh my gosh. Well, how would property tax adjustments affect this couple?
Well, in BC, because you prepay your property taxes, when you sell a home, the current owner wants the remaining balance of those funds returned to them. That can easily be thousands of dollars, and it's an expense that's usually not thought of.
Well, it's really easy to see why you might need to see an advisor and talk to an advisor before you sell your home, just to see how much you're actually going to net from that transaction. And then I guess you'd suggest drawing up a simple financial plan that outlines what the various scenarios mean to your specific finances.
I really like it when we're able to offer ideas you may not have thought of yourself. If we look at today's sky-high prices, could it be a good idea to pocket the money and maybe rent for a while before buying? Sometimes an advisor's biggest value can come from helping people to open themselves up to new ideas before making any commitments.
It seems easy to put off dealing with this when you have so many other things going on at the same time, but it really highlights the importance of having a coach or an advisor in your corner to help keep you on track.
Downsizing will do no good if you squander the profits. Before you make your move, think about how you'll invest the money that's left over to ensure it's still there when you need it. You'll need a plan. One thing we're seeing more and more of is parents using some of the proceeds to help the kids out, saying, when else are we going to get our hands on this type of money?
So true. And it seems that while the pitfalls of downsizing are many, or could be many, downsizing effectively can pay off handsomely if you have a plan and you're emotionally ready for the move. Do you have any other tips on this?
It's helpful to have realistic expectations. Take the time to do your research and make sure you have a complete and accurate picture of what your life will be like in your new home. Try on that vision, so to speak. Try and figure out any shortfalls before you take the plunge.
I can help you with this one. Work with an advisor to explore your options to get a good handle on your complete financial picture. We can't say it enough.
Thanks, Joanne.
It's a good reminder that life is a journey, and like any successful journey, it should always include good planning. Plan more, worry less, right? Well, it's clear that downsizing your home carries several considerations that you need to explore before you take this plunge. So your if you're looking at downsizing options, consider calling Jim. You are listening to Boomer Life on CL615. I'm Joanne Sutton. Today we're speaking with JimeDoyle, Senior Financial Consultant with Investors Group. And to learn more about how Jim can actually help with any of your financial concerns, please call him at 604-682-5431. Or you can always email Jim if that's easier, jim.doyle@investorsgroup.com. Stay with us. Jim has insight on the pros and cons of buying real estate with a partner, and we'll also talk about some potential estate planning woes. That's all coming up next on Boomer Life on CL650.